Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case. Welcome to Vermontitude. Today we are talking with Scott Sparks from the Bud Barn, the Vermont Hempicurean, and the Grow Barn. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. So what are we? We're going to be basically leading with the Bud Barn, but I do have to say I like the phrase you coined around CBD that friends don't let friends buy CBD at gas stations.
Absolutely. That's not a good place to buy CBD,
right?
Especially in Vermont. You don't know where it is from.
Exactly. But speaking to that, it's all basically purchased locally, all your CBD product, correct?
Absolutely. It's really important to me to support the Vermont community and economy as much as possible. So when I had Vermont Hempicurean, I bought all Vermont produced CBD products, and I visited the hemp farmers myself. I knew how they grew, where they grew. I got to develop relationships with them, and that's how I made my purchasing decisions.
All right. So do you have that same luxury with the Bud Barn?
Definitely. First of all, with Vermont Bud Barn, I'm required to only buy cannabis products from Vermont producers. But even if that wasn't the case, that's what I would do. So I've developed relationships over quite a few years in the Vermont cannabis community, / hemp community, and we are moving forward together.
Okay. So effective October 1st, cannabis became legal to sell in Vermont. Vermont
Correct.
Legalized it, rolled it out. Dispensaries will now begin to open. Mm-hmm. You are the first to open in the Brattleboro area or the general area?
Yeah, I was the first one south of Rutland. Since then, a couple days ago, someone opened in Bennington, and you will see more coming up, but I was the first south of Rutland.
All right. Which gives you kind of some unique positioning here. Now, how does this work exactly? So help the viewers understand. Can somebody from Massachusetts come in and purchase from you?
Letter of the law, they can come in and purchase it, but they're not supposed to take it over state line. So that's letter of the law.
Okay. We've had many conversations, you and I, about how it is confusing. And I know that we've spoken firsthand how something that has been said locally, on a local level, on a state level, this is legal now, and then on a federal level, no, it's not. And that really sort of impacts anything that is federally regulated. Radio stations fall into that category. Mm-hmm. Banking falls under that category. But you've had nothing but smooth sailings with the banks.
Yeah, it's been no problem at all. Essentially, all of my businesses, starting with Vermont Hempicurean, anytime I tried to do something, I was told no, and then I had to figure a way how to do it. With Vermont Hempicurean, I went through 5 credit card companies in the first 2 years. They all knew that I sold CBD. They all required extensive documentation. And then they all shut me down and got cold feet. I finally found one that I've been with for a few years that's been just fine, and we have a good business relationship, and that's worked. But when you get into the cannabis business, it's even worse. For my Hempicurean business, I worked with VSCCU, and they have been hemp friendly and were supposedly going to be cannabis friendly. But approximately a month before everyone went legal, they decided that they wouldn't take any cannabis businesses on, which was surprising and challenging because I had a business relationship with them for about 5 years. And I was in the process of onboarding, and they basically told me, nope, sorry, you didn't make the cut, which was pretty disappointing given that I'd been putting quite a bit of money through their credit union over those years. So I was forced to find another way to do banking. I went with a virtual bank, which I was not familiar with at the time. They, seemed like a good option, but long story short, there was some bait and switch, and what they sold me and what the end result was not the same. And it was going to cost me like $300 to have an armored car come pick up any monies. Again, there was no local place you could deposit, so that was going to add a lot of cost. Despite the 0.5% of my deposits they wanted and a $500 a month fee. But Brattleboro Savings and Loan came to the rescue. They has set up a cannabis banking program that has been very positive for me. At least it's been the most positive of any other options. There was a large fee to set up an account, but there's a moderate fee on a monthly basis, and it makes it possible for me to have local banking.
So what made Brattleboro Savings and Loan different in the banking world? Just are they more of a kind of a boots on the ground approach to what I would consider common sense banking? I mean, you are a business, you are a retailer within the city limits of well, not the city limits, but within the borders of Brattleboro. Mm-hmm. And how were they able to do that?
Well, I think they just decided to take a risk. They made an internal decision that for people who followed the rules and were doing everything legally, that it was worth their bother to try to work with these local people, whether they be growers or retailers. And that's how it started. And, it took a while. I kept asking them and bugging them, basically saying, have you made a decision? Have you made a decision? And for a long time, they had not made a decision, which is why I originally went with the virtual bank, because mm-hmm. I had to have a bank account. It was kind of a catch-22. I couldn't get my license without proving I had a bank. I couldn't get a bank account without proving I had a license. It took some negotiation on both sides before everyone agreed, well, we're going to do it if you do it, and vice versa. So I was able to finally make it work.
So there is a lot of this. Vermont passes, says you can. We begin to open up dispensaries, but you are, if you will, federally clipped.
Yes.
And that had to be frustrating. And I know you and I have had many long conversations around how just backward thinking that is. And I'm sure Brattleboro mm-hmm. Savings and Loan, good for them for seeing the bigger picture mm-hmm. of what this is going to look like. Because as we discussed, you were out in West Brattleboro, and that is a little bit of a dead zone.
It has been, yeah.
Do you feel like having the Bud Barn, the Grow Barn, and the Vermont Hempicurean out there is going to boost that a little bit?
I certainly hope so. I would like to see more life come to West Brattleboro. I think there's a lot of potential there. There could be more life there and more business there. There's lots of reasons why, but my hope is that my business will be a draw that will then make other businesses, ancillary businesses, want to come out there as well. And hopefully we'll see that.
Okay. Let's drill into some of the stumbling blocks, barriers to entry into opening up a dispensary. One of which discussed is price mm-hmm. Versus we know that people now with the legalization can grow their own plants, mm-hmm. And I suppose that there's always been that, right? But now it's legal, so you can grow up to is it 2 plants?
Letter of the law, you can have 2. You can have up to 6, but you have to only 2 at a time can be in flower. So it's challenging, but yeah, 2 is probably the best way to put it.
Okay, so because that's all my simple brain can handle. And I'm not that I'm growing any of it, but it just that, and somebody else had to describe that to me. And pricing for coming into the dispensary, is it better? Is it worse? Is it?
Well, I think what you'd find is that if you are used to dealing with a black market grower or what they might call legacy grower, that you could probably get your product less expensive than you could coming into my dispensary.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the growers have had to, become legal themselves. That's required them to get a license, get insurance, get packaging, branding. All their product has to be tested, not only for potency, but for heavy metals and pathogens. All of that costs a lot of money. So I look at it as fair trade cannabis.
Okay.
If you want these cannabis growers to be able to survive in a legal market, you have to be willing to pay a little more for the value added that they're going to be able to provide. So if you came into my store, we can tell you where it was grown. We can provide testing, lab reports, and you know what you're purchasing, when that might not be the case, and probably in most cases is not true when you're buying in the black market.
Okay. Black market back in my day were called dealers.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I know. Yeah. I know you're just trying to be politically correct. So when we deal into, do you feel as though, like, for Vermont? So anybody within Vermont, as we said, Massachusetts can come up and buy from your shop. They just can't leave.
Theoretically,
right? Yeah,
yes.
They can't leave. Yeah. Again, just another sort of a backwards way that the federal government kind of operates, right? With their legals, with their legal rationing of things. Has there been any kind of blowback? I think you called it reefer madness. Has there been any of that so far?
Not since I was in the planning stages. In the beginning, there were some groups that were concerned that I would be selling to underage people, and that somehow my business would bring crime to the area. I would say that's not really true. To get into our store, you have to provide a valid ID, photo ID. Most people, that's a license, will take passports as well. We definitely refuse people that have questionable IDs. So you have to be 21 just to come into the building.
Right.
There's no on-site consumption. That's not allowed. Now, could someone potentially come into my store, buy product, and then in turn sell it to someone else? Yeah, that's absolutely possible. Do I think that's happening on any kind of regular basis? No. There would be other ways to do that, meaning they would just grow their own and sell it on their own. Sure. If they wanted to go down that road.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty heavy lift.
Yes.
The proverbial group of high school students sitting outside the Quickie Mart trying to find an adult to buy them beer, be the equivalent to that. And I think we've squelched that.
I have never seen anything resembling that at all happen at my business, and I would discourage it if I saw it. I would prevent it from happening.
All right. Well, luckily for the town of Brattleboro, you've always been a responsible business owner.
I've tried,
and I don't feel as though that's going to change. So, your address is 257 Marlboro.
257 Marlboro Road. We're directly across from the New England House Restaurant, and some people might know our building is where there was American Traders, where they did the canoes and toboggans for a few years.
And if you go back far enough, the fitness barn.
Yes. I have an old photo of the barn when it was actually a gift shop in the 70s called Cornucopia. I have a picture of that in my building.
Yeah. So, but it looks like you're here to stay. So congratulations on opening up, and continued good luck. Sounds like you're stepping in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be there, and come visit us at the Big Red Barn.
All right. This is we've been talking with Scott Sparks today on Vermontitude. We thank everybody for tuning in. Of course, we release every Tuesday, and you can get this at reformer.com or on BCTV. So thanks again for jumping on.
Thank you for having me.